So squatters' rights, how to give your clients useful and accurate advice every time they ask. I hope this is the topic you're here for. I have to tell you, one of my many seminars that I've done in-house, I stood up when I started at a particular brokerage. I started speaking, and I asked this question, and all of a sudden, 5 people walked out. They were there for something completely different. So if you abandon us now, I'll see the numbers go down, but that's okay. Anyway, squatters' rights, how to give your clients useful and accurate advice every single time they ask. So what does that mean? Let's have a look now. This is what we're going to go through today. We're going to cover what squatters' rights actually are. We're going to cover why we need to know this. We're going to look at the rules of adverse possession. Squatters' rights is adverse possession, right? We're going to look at adverse possession. We're then going to look at how we understand land status. It's so important to understand the status of land in all of this, the date of conversion, and then a quick overview of the Boundary Wise Academy. So hopefully that's what you're looking for. Hopefully this is going to give you some value. So let's move on to the next slide. So here we go. What are squatters' rights? So squatters' rights, that's the colloquial term. Technically speaking, it's adverse possession. And what this is the right to claim ownership of a portion of somebody else's land following an extended period of use. The right to claim ownership of a portion of someone else's land following an extended period of use. That's essentially what adverse possession is. But it's not quite that simple, right? You can't just take other people's land because you're using it for a while. We know that. And so let's dig into what this actually looks like. It all hinges, hang on a second, let me make sure. There we go, sorry about that. It all hinges on the status of the land. And for you to really understand adverse possession, this is how I actually ended up understanding. I couldn't feel the edges of this for a while until I understood what land status was and the impact that land status had on the application or the availability of adverse possession on any given property. So it hinges on land status. We have 4 statuses. Is that the plural version of status? Statuses. We'll call it that. We have 4 different statuses for land in Ontario. And when we say land, what we mean is parcels of land. We have around 5.5 million individual parcels of land in Ontario. And every single one of them falls into one of these status categories. There's registry, there's land titles qualified, there's land titles absolute, and land titles absolute plus. There's only 4. And your property or your client's property will be in one of these, or will have one of these statuses. So basically, at the highest level, here's how it goes. If your status is registry, if your parcel of land, if your property has a status of registry, if it's in the registry system, you can claim adverse possession. If, jumping down here in the list, if your status is land titles absolute or land titles absolute plus, you cannot claim adverse possession under any circumstances. And finally, if your status is land titles qualified, you cannot claim adverse possession as of the date of conversion to land titles qualified, but there is a mechanism there that allows you to claim adverse possession if you can prove continuous and uninterrupted use of that portion of land for a period of 10 years prior to the date of conversion. It hinges on the date of conversion. Now, we're going to get into this in just a second, but this is one slide I want you to take away with you, take a screenshot, whatever, because in its general form, this is how land status affects your ability to claim adverse possession. So let's take a look at these 4 statuses in a slightly different way. For me, it was the historical understanding of how we got to where we are that really cemented the knowledge in for me. So here we go. A big slide here, I apologize. No, I don't. It's good information, okay? So we're going to start from the left-hand side here. A while back, more than 25 years ago, the vast majority, all the parcels, 5.5 million parcels of land in Ontario, were in the old registry system. And under the rules of the old registry system, you were able to claim adverse possession pretty much at will over your neighbor's land, or have your land taken away from you, stolen from you, if you want to call it stealing, claimed by a neighboring property owner if they'd used that land for a period of time. Around 20 years ago, the new land title system was put in place, or at least bolstered up. And one of the key benefits or protections that was put in to the land title system was that any property that was in the land title system was now protected against adverse possession. They wanted to stop this. They wanted to stop this Wild West stealing of land kind of system that we had. So they said one of the benefits of being in the land title system, of your property being in the land title system, is going to be that we're going to protect you from adverse possession, right? But at the time, most of the properties were over in the registry system. We went through a process over the last 20, 25 years of converting properties, parcels from the old registry system to the new land title system. And over that period of 20, 25 years, almost all of Ontario's parcels have been moved over. So there's only about 20,000 or so parcels left who have a status of registry system, who are still in the registry system. And the reason is, and these parcels are mostly strange, odd pieces of strips of land in rural Ontario that nobody can make heads or tails of. The chances of you coming across a residential property in an urban area or a suburb that is in the registry system are virtually nil. It's very, very rare these days. So what happened was all of those over the last 20 years, the properties in Ontario were moved, parcels were moved from the registry system over to the land titles system. And they were dropped into a status called land titles qualified. Well, what does this mean? Well, imagine you've got a property and your property was in the registry system and now it got moved into the land title system. You can't just say as of this day, you can't just say you can never claim adverse possession because there may have been historically a legitimate adverse possession situation claim. You can't just delete that by moving a property from one system to another. So what they did is they said, okay, we're going to create one of the statuses that we're going to have in the land title system is going to be land status qualified. We've moved the parcel administratively over, but we haven't gone and checked the boundaries of it to make sure that nobody's encroaching and nobody's going to have a claim in the future. So what we're going to do is rather than go through the process of going and checking every single boundary in Ontario, impossible. What we're going to do is we're going to create a mechanism by which people whose property is in land titles qualified still have the ability to bring forward historical claims. And so that's how this rule for land titles qualified properties came about. As of the date of conversion, makes sense now, right? As of the date of conversion from the registry system to the land title system, as of that date, going forward, you can no longer claim adverse possession on that property. However, if you can prove 10 years of continuous and uninterrupted use of that property or a portion of that property prior to the date of conversion, then at least you've met the basic threshold of qualification to be able to consider an adverse possession case. It all hinges on that one date. Now, there are two other statuses out there. There's land titles absolute plus. In some cases, think a lender now wants to make sure before they forward funds, they want to make sure there's absolutely no possibility of an adverse possession claim on a property that's in land titles qualified. They might demand that you go through the process of moving your property from land titles qualified to land titles absolute plus. And that is a process of checking boundaries, checking with neighbors to make sure that there isn't any trailing historical adverse possession situation that may come back to haunt after the fact. Once it's in land titles absolute plus, it's locked in. There's absolutely no way you can claim adverse possession against it. Now, the last one, land titles absolute, that's for any new parcels. Think new subdivisions, think condos, any newly created parcel of land nowadays, and certainly in the last 20 years, goes straight into land titles absolute. And by virtue of that has absolute protection against adverse possession from the day it is created onwards. So obviously you've got 4 different statuses, and each status carries with it a different kind of relevance towards adverse possession. But basically, if it's in the registry system, there's 20,000 of them left. You're probably not going to come across them. But technically speaking, yes, you can claim adverse possession. That's the old way of doing things. If the parcel of land is in land titles absolute, forget it. If it's in land titles absolute plus, forget it. If it's in land titles qualified, and by the way, that's most of the parcels in Ontario, if it's in land titles qualified, then there are situations, conditions under which you can claim adverse possession, and it hinges on that date of conversion. Prior to the date of conversion, you have to show 10 years uninterrupted use. Forwards from the date of conversion, no dice. Got it? Not too bad, right? Let's go to the next slide. So really what we see here is it hinges on these two facts. And now we're starting to see the sort of questions that you're going to be asking. It hinges on when somebody comes to you and says, oh, my neighbor's claiming adverse possession against me, or a potential seller, right? You're listing a property. They say, you know what? Let's just put it through as is, because the new buyer will tell them on the quiet that they can claim adverse possession against that piece of land. Oi, right? Wow, we see all sorts. But that happens, then obviously you can start thinking about, well, it depends on two things, right? It depends on what the status is of that parcel, and then if the status is land titles qualified, it depends on the date of conversion to land titles qualified, right? So I'm seeing some questions come in. We're going to deal with these questions either at the end or in a separate video, okay? And one that did just come in, which is a great question, is do these rules also apply to right-of-way? A right-of-way is an easement. No, you cannot claim adverse possession over an easement, period. So yeah, thanks, Tammy. Thanks for that question. So getting back to this, it hinges on these two things: what the status is, and then also if it is land titles qualified, what the date of conversion is. So when somebody asks you, can I claim adverse possession? Really, your two questions that you come back with, you certainly don't come back with yes or no. The two questions you come back with are, first of all, well, what is the land status? What is the land status? What is the status of the land? Then if it is land titles qualified, you ask, well, what is the date of conversion? Only once you have that information can you really make at least give any advice or any counsel to your client. So now we ask, so where do we find out where the land status is, and where do we find out where the date of conversion is? And I'm sure a whole bunch of you are going to come up here and say, hey, it's the parcel register. That's right, it's the parcel register. We think possibly the most important document that you can acquire on the listing side and the buying side to help your client understand the property better and ensure that A, they're getting the right property, B, that the people who are selling it are actually the ones on title, and C, understanding adverse possession. There are a whole bunch of other benefits as well, but this is where you get your two most important pieces of information when it comes to adverse possession. So let's take a look at the parcel register. Here it is. Here's a parcel register. They all look pretty much the same. And on this parcel register, and there we go. Renee, I think we're answering this right now, right? How do you know what the status of the land is? On this parcel register, it tells you both the status of the land, and if it is land titles qualified, it tells you what the date is. So let's zoom in. Here it is right here. Top left, it says LT conversion qualified, right? LT conversion qualified, land titles qualified. So you know that this is one of the probably 5 million properties or 4.5 million properties that are in land titles qualified. So you know that there is a mechanism for a historically based adverse possession claim to be made. So the next question is, what was the date of conversion? It's bottom left in the red circle there. Date of conversion to land titles. It tells it really plainly there for you. Is October the 22nd, 2001. Okay, pause. What does this mean? Let's bring it into the real world. It means that your pivot point for an adverse possession claim is October the 22nd, 2001. That means from October 22nd, 2001 till today and into the future, no adverse possession claim can be made. But it also means that if somebody can prove continuous and uninterrupted use of that portion of land for 10 years prior to that, so from October 22nd, 1991 to October 22nd, 2001, that's right? Yes, it is. Then they've met at least the basic threshold to qualify to make an adverse possession claim. Now, one of the things that we've seen out there anecdotally is that very few good quality lawyers who understand land and understand land law, very few take on adverse possession claims. And the reason is that the burden of proof for that 10-year to prove that you used a piece of land for 10 years uninterrupted, that burden of proof is incredibly heavy and hard. It's difficult to prove it in a court of law. And so what we're finding is that as fewer and fewer adverse possession claims actually go through successfully, As we get further away from that date of conversion, it becomes harder and harder to prove that 10 years of uninterrupted use prior to the date of conversion. What we're finding is fewer and fewer good lawyers will take on adverse possession claims. So when your client comes to you all excited that they can make an adverse possession claim, maybe you can douse a little bit of cold water on it and say, listen, it's not that easy. Let's see if, first of all, your property qualifies, meets the threshold of qualification, and then let's have a chat about the reality of adverse possession and the reality of you actually being successful with your claim. However, it is the parcel register right here that gives you both the status of the property and it gives you the date of conversion. If this was in the registry system, it would say under fee simple in the top left corner here, it would say registry. If it was land titles absolute, it would say that. If it was land titles absolute plus, it would say that. In this case, it's land titles qualified, and the date of conversion was October 22nd, 2001. So let's look at a real example, another aspect to the real example. Your client comes to you and says, my neighbor is coming after me, telling me that they have used this property for 20 years, or a piece of my property at the back for 20 years, and they're going to claim adverse possession squatter's rights over it. And your client's going to probably come to you freaking out, right? So you first of all say, all right, 20 years, 2020, that goes back to the year 2000. Got it. 2020. So let's go back and let's take a look at the parcel register here for this property. We know that it is a land titles qualified. So yes, there is the opportunity for an adverse possession claim, but we also see that the date of conversion was October 22nd, 2001. What we would have to show is continuous and uninterrupted use for a period of 10 years prior to this date. So we would have to show from 1991 onwards, from October 22nd, 1991. So the mental math I just did a minute ago was, how far back does 20 years take us from today? Because the neighbor is claiming a 20-year occupancy of that particular piece of property. Well, 20 years takes us back to the year 2000, right? Because we're at 2020 now. So where is 2000 in relation to the date of conversion? Well, it was converted in 2001. So what that means is that in terms of the qualification, the qualifying ability, it means that the next door neighbor can only prove continuous and uninterrupted use for a period of 1 year prior to the date of conversion. There's no case. There's absolutely no case. That neighbor would have had to say 30 years or more to be able to claim that adverse possession. So you see how tough it can get, right? You can see how tough it can get. But that is the thought process you will go through with your client. You'll say, whoa, let's get a hold of the parcel register. Let's look at what the status is. Let's look at the date of conversion. What is your client claiming? Let's do a little diagram and show where exactly these dates hit. And let's see if their claim actually fits the qualification criteria of 10 years prior to the date of conversion. Simple, right? Not difficult. All right. Next slide, because I know now I'm sure there's a whole bunch coming here about where do I find the parcel register? Okay, dead easy. Where do I get the parcel register? Well, of course you can get it from us, right? So we are partners with the province. We are partners with Terranet, who runs GeoWarehouse. We have access to all the parcel registers and all the data off them. We can offer you those parcel registers at protectyourboundaries.ca. You can just buy the parcel register itself. Or it is embedded inside if you purchase a buyer's report or a seller's report for your deal, or if you did that for your client, they have it in there. We provide that in there as part of the documentation we provide. So it's in the buyer's report, seller's report, even in the easement report that we can provide. But you can also obtain it from GeoWarehouse, which we all know that you have access to. It's also on GeoWarehouse. When you go to that property detail page, you have access to the parcel register. And that's one of the real values of this parcel register. It helps you answer that adverse possession claim. There is one other place. If your client still has the package they received from their lawyer after closing, it'll be in there as well, because this is one of the documents that the lawyer will acquire as part of their process when they do the closing. So, guys, I hope this has been useful for you. I hope I didn't overwhelm you with too much complexity. Just remember, start off with asking the question, what is the status of the property, the status of the land? And then understand that if it is land titles qualified, you then go and look for the date of conversion. That's your hinge point. That's your pivot point. And one side of that pivot point, there's no adverse possession. The other side, you've got to be able to prove 10 years of continuous and uninterrupted use. It's that simple, right? So, a couple of slides to finish up, okay? First of all, Boundary Wise Academy. Please come and join us. Come and see us. What you're going to get on this is 8 courses not taught by OREA or RICO. It's an online education program. It's 7 to 10 hours of video training. I got to tell you, I cannot believe how many people last month joined the Boundary Wise Academy. You guys are awesome. We've had so many new registrants and so many graduates. People are signing up one day, 2 days later they're graduating and getting that professional designation. And that's really what you get in this. It's a value. You get the knowledge, you get the tools and resources, and you get process that helps you do great deals, safe deals. But what you also get is the CBW designation. There's that pin right there that you get that you can wear, hopefully with pride. But you get that Boundary Wise CBW, Certified Boundary Wise Professional Designation. We know with the new regulations that have come down recently from the province how important that is. You get hotline support for 1 year. I cannot tell you how important this is and how valuable this is. What this means is that every time you're in a situation with a client, either on the buying side or the listing side, where they ask you something about the land that you don't necessarily have the answer to, be it adverse possession or easement or boundaries or fences or anything, we're on the other end of the phone or on the other end of an email for you. If you get a survey and you're not sure if you can use it, we're on the other end of an email for you to answer those questions. We are your boundary support behind every single deal if you're a Boundary Wise graduate, and you get that free for a year. Really good value. And then all kinds of other great stuff, which I know you'll go and take a look at, okay? So let's see, what else do you get? Okay, when I started my career in Canada, I started out selling books door to door out of the trunk of my car. It was an interesting experience, and I learned how to sell the hard way. But what I did learn is what it's like to wake up 3 weeks into the month and not know how you're going to make your rent payment or your mortgage payment, because I was commission only. I know you guys are too. So please know that behind this whole system, where we do give you the tools to do better, safer, risk mitigated deals, we're also thinking we know what situation these folks are in terms of being commission only, and therefore we are going to structure this in such a way that drives more leads to you, more listings to you, and lets you close more listings, and also helps you put back pressure on the downward pressure on your commissions, helps you justify even further why you're so worth every penny of what you charge to transact land. Go to Boundary Wise CA, come over there, take a look at us. Listen, we're going to send you an email because we know it's tough times right now. We're going to send you an email with two phenomenal offers. Please take us up on it. Come join all the other hundreds of agents that have got this Boundary Wise designation. I hope this has been valuable for you today. Hope to see you next week. Come and like us and comment on us and do all those other wonderful things that we know are so important in this review economy. But most important, stay safe, stay productive, stay positive, and we'll just wait for this market to explode on us in a few weeks' time. See you next week, everyone. Take care. Bye for now.